Continuation from yesterday. You see, I've tried to counterweight any stress in the system, so that long joist piece over there would actually pull the tower down if I hadn't set up a mini tower next to it, which is a good stepping stone anyway. And that joist is going to fix into the crux here, we hope. I may have to shave off the end to be able to get that in. But it should just about fit in the top there. It would make a nice high point here, which is what I want. So the roof is actually sloping down to the centre, and then a more gentler slope here. Hence the other post, which is going at the other end of that joist, is shorter. Now I'm using these ropes without pulleys. If I had pulleys, it would be a very different matter. I've pulled probably 2-ton trees with pulleys, one-handedly. Olive trees actually, back in London. Once these poles are upright, I'll secure them as much as possible with pegs and ropes, and then I will make an awning over to my caravan, which will create an area of shade covering both the caravan and the new house, which is one of the issues I have here. This summer's been extremely hot and the ground is incredibly desiccated. In terms of permaculture, I used this area to build, one because it was right next to the caravan and there was almost like a natural inclination to do so. In fact, if you look at this area, there's no trees. Even if the cypress trees over on that line there are doing pretty well, there's probably a deep point in the geology. But here, it's literally so shallow that nothing will grow apart from wild grass and herbs. And every one of these holes I went down at the most 5 inches. This one I hit bedrock after 2 or 3 inches, and infilled it with a gravel drainage layer, and then on top of that using biochar to inhibit the rotting process. Once the poles are up, moisture will dry out even quicker when they're in the vertical rather than horizontal, and it should be easy enough to treat afterwards. That's not a problem. So the one hole I had, which is that one over there, is probably going to take one of my taller posts, which means I can get it right in there and probably lodge it in, compact it with loose rubble, which will create even more stability to the structure. And once I've got a joist running from that post to this joist here, which is going across, I can bind it again with more rope and do all the final pegging up really at the end. Let's see how strong I can get it so it's a self-supporting structure. Now what I'm going to do now is just swing this around a little bit more, and you see why I've kept certain things on here, but I've just got to be careful that the end doesn't slip out. At the moment it's in a good spot. Now this should be easy enough. He says, look at that. Literally, you can see what I'm doing here. Now, it's probably not wise to get underneath it. Now I'll push it back. You wonder how they built pyramids. Well, I find out that I have a technique which develops over time, and this is a technique which develops for one person. For two people, I've seen the way they do it. They make the frame on the floor, they pull the whole frame up with 2 posts, 3 posts maybe, with the joist running across them. You've got a group of people to do that. But when you're one person and you can't rely on old people or neighbours or volunteers, then you start thinking. And I take walks, occasionally go to my bees, well, in fact often go to my bees and just look at them with such a passive mind, and then I come back here. And it's true that you have to actually sleep on the subject for ideas to come. And one of those ideas was a green roof. Had I built this structure 2 years ago, when I first put these rubber walls down on the base, I may have just put a corrugated iron roof on it to collect water in the middle. It would be like a concave. But then I thought, well, I mean, after that summer, we're going to need a cooling process. And as it's a well-known technology, green roofs, built up cities, they can severely reduce the amount of heat a building contains. And it's widely used in places like Tokyo, where the closeness of buildings radiates heat onto each other. And so now they're building lots of green gardens on top of roofs. And of course, that whole culture of extending wildlife corridors through cities has been improved because of it. People keeping lots of bees on roofs as well. If there's enough of them, then they fly between roofs in order to pollinate and to get their nectar sources. Anyway, the last thing I've got to do is just put that joist in the crux. I want to see if it fits, and we'll keep the video running for another minute and we'll see what happens. I don't know what they weigh. All I know is that fell on me. It would probably kill me, crush me. That end of it over there weighs about 200 kilos. That's just the end. The whole thing probably weighs about 500 kilos. It's still quite wet. Not the most stable structure in the world. Scaffolding, but as I say, it's counterbalanced now, so. So all of this came, the inspiration of finishing my journey to Poland, and then you've got all this creative energy. And in fact, I had such a surplus of it. It gave me a couple of natural emissions. When you're on the road and you're pushing and you're only sleeping 5 or 6 hours a day, a night, you're pushing to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, doing stuff, looking for another place to stay. You really do change your biological clock. And you're less likely to have a natural emission if you're awake. Although I've had natural emissions whilst I'm awake. And I had one here. So not the most stable structure in the world. what I've got to do is just centre that a bit. Thank you. And it just lowers it. Probably allow me to get that in there. It's all jolly. With a few twists and turns, it will push into that crux. But I'm happy because I've got that in there. And the time will come when I need to raise this end of it first, and it will mean dismantling the top of this. As you can see, not the safest structure in the world. See if I can do something about that now. It's going to be rather loose there. There's a bit better. Looking at my sweaty best.